Hey everybody. Today I'm going to be doing another sample of a meal prep for what I can consider a recovery day for me. Um, I've done one of these before, and I did it more of sort of like a pasta-based meal with pasta and sauce. And what I'm going to be doing today is rice is going to be the main component. And just to kind of go over what I do again, my recovery days are typically not really high carbs, but more carbs, lower fat. I kind of, for my normal diet, I kind of cycle it around, so it's not really consistent. But overall, I would say it's kind of a moderate to low carb diet on average, and then kind of moderate to high fat. The fat and the carbs kind of work opposite of each other. And the protein pretty much stays the same for the most part. Like, so there's kind of fluctuation, but that's without getting too complicated. Just to keep it simple, that's kind of the way I would look at it. And then one of my recovery days, a typical recovery day, which is either on a rest day or when I just don't do resistance training. If I do some kind of cardio or go on a hike or high intensity interval training or something that's not just based on resistance, like weightlifting or body weight exercises, I kind of flip flop the fat and the carbs. So I go higher carb content, like the kind of lower to medium fat, and then a little bit lower protein. Although with all those carbs, usually between not the rice as much, but anytime I have breads, certainly the pastas and beans, when I have beans or lentils in there, the protein probably adds up more than I realize, more than I intend. I don't really measure anything. I just kind of eyeball it and know a little bit, based on like what weight I want to weigh. And when I started doing that, so I don't know exactly, really specific numbers of what I eat in a day, and it kind of fluctuates. And obviously, if you throw in a food challenge in there, that just completely throws everything off, and that's kind of like a like a skip day. I just don't care. That's the goal is just to eat a lot. So what I'm going to do to start, and hopefully, what I've said before too, since I'm going to be eating all three of these in the same day, I do measure them just to make sure that I'm not too loose in my measurements. But as long as it's pretty close, I'm going to be eating all of this in the same, waking period or whatever you want to call it. So it doesn't have to be too exact. And again, what I normally do is like my pre-workout and post-workout meals, they vary a little bit just from day to day, but again, the macronutrient and calorie content is similar. And then I'll make these three meals, and then I'll just eat those about 2 to 3 hours apart, just depending on the day and what I've done. And then if I ended up doing something more intense or for longer than I intended to, there's always room for a little snacking in between. So what I'm going to start with today is some chicken. Here at the bottom, I'm going for about 2 ounces each for each container here. And sometimes on these days, I'll just buy I try to get the all natural, but it's just the canned chicken, which normally, I don't really eat the, as far as canned goes, like I said, I try to get the least processed type, but, occasionally I don't really care. It's just sometimes it's easier to do it that way. But normally I wouldn't really eat that. But on these days, it's for the sake of, as I said, how I prepare them. Sometimes it's just easier to do it that way, the way that it's measured out. So the rest of it should be about 2 ounces. Yeah, that looks about right. Might be off a little, but close enough, like I said. All right, so first is the chicken. Then I'm going to add some beans. So usually what I'll do is I'll put it on grams just to see, but I'll take like maybe 2 handfuls. And then it's not so much by weight, it's more of like just whatever a handful turns out to be. So like 1/16 was what that handful was. And then this one comes back, it's already on 3 grams, but I can already tell it's going to be too much. So that's 100. All right, 110, yeah, so that's close. Close enough. Then this one, what's that already going to be on? That's a 76. So I'm thinking maybe about 10 from each of these. If this goes up to about 86, then that should be about, yeah, like I said, if you're in the ballpark figure, you know, within about maybe 6 to 8 grams, that's probably all about the same between those three. And then just so I don't have to stir it as well later, do a little bit of stirring, just kind of shake it up before it gets too full. So next come in, obviously if you couldn't tell, I use the Great Northern beans for those, and that's just because it doesn't really matter what kind you use. Most beans have pretty similar you know, calories, protein, carbohydrate, and fiber contents for the most part. But I'm using, I'd already cooked these ahead of time. It's red rice, green lentils, and the mixed, I think it's a 3-color quinoa. It's mostly rice though, as you'll see. But personally, I just find that the Great Northern beans go really well with the red rice. And then, as I'll do in a little bit, I season it just like you would meat. And it obviously this does have chicken in it, but even if it didn't, they just have a very when you season them that way, it just comes out with a very meaty texture to it, even though there's not any meat in it. So what I'm aiming for here is, I think, about 130 each of the rice. That should be pretty close to what I'm looking for. All right, that's exactly 130. That's one. Hard to tell. Usually as I'm doing these, I'm kind of eyeballing it, like what's left and what's already in there. That looks about right though. 126 is close enough. And this one I'm just going to try to dump in. We'll see if that's about 130. That'd be nice. Don't have to go back and do too much math. Yeah, it's 124 right there. Yeah, it's 133. So I'm just going to put the rest in this one. And those are all close enough. And as always, if anybody uses these to get ideas for themselves, there's lots of different ways you can go. I just pick these because I like them. A lot of times I'll experiment on these days, mixing certain things. And I've done it before where I'll make something that sounds really good at the time, it looks good, and then, you know, the day comes that I actually eat it, and it doesn't taste bad, but it doesn't taste good like I thought it was going to, and it's really disappointing, especially when I eat that first meal. I'm just thinking like, oh man, I've made 3 of these, now I got to eat them, you know, and it's kind of disappointing. But at the same time, sometimes you do it and it comes out great. So, you know, I mean, if you like food and like trying things, that's just the fun of it. Usually, if you know what you like, it's not going to be a disaster. It might just be a little disappointing, like the one I was just talking about. So, normally with rice, actually, let me season it first. So, I generally put in a lot of salt on my off days as well. So for these, I'm going to get some salt, just a little bit of taco seasoning, not a whole lot. I usually just get the cheap taco seasoning too. It's probably not one of the better ones, but I don't use a lot, so it's just to give it a little flavor. And then typically I'll add just a little extra, well, it's a little more than a little extra onion powder and chili, just because those are my 2 favorites of you know, something you would find in a typical pre-made up taco seasoning pouch or container. Then normally I don't put a ton of vegetables with my rice, but again, since these, I'm trying to kind of mimic, I've made these before with the red rice and the chicken and Great Northern beans. It kind of mimics tacos. So what I will do for these is I'll put 2 spoonfuls each of tomatoes, just diced tomatoes. Well, these actually have a green chili in them as well. Maybe some other spices or flavors, but like I said, I don't want a ton of vegetables, but if I put too many, it's usually kind of gross for me, like for what I want to eat on one of these kind of days. But if you put just a little bit, it does bring something to the dish. I enjoy it. And then I did a food feature recently where I did a Guy's Grocery Game style cooking activity for myself here while the coronavirus is going around, with the backdrop being that the grocery store is empty because of that. And I bought green chili. I reached out to some of my friends on Instagram, and we came up with some things like parameters and rules to follow. And one of the things I bought was green chili, and then I totally forgot to use it because I was so excited just cooking and using everything else. So then I'm going to put just 2 small, maybe about half spoonfuls of green chili in here as well. And this is the green chili that I bought for those burgers and forgot to use. So just gives a nice little bit different texture, but again, I don't want the vegetables to overwhelm what I'm trying to do. And actually I'm going to add just a little more salt to each one of these. And then at that point, I'm going to actually stir each one up quite a bit so it's nice and mixed. And then normally I probably have a little bit more rice, but with each one of these, I have quite a bit of bread on hand right now. And before it goes bad, I just want to use it. So with each one of these, when I eat them tomorrow, I'm probably going to have like 2 or 3 slices of toast as well. So that's why I went a little bit lighter on the rice than I normally would. I probably would do about twice as much rice as I did here. Or I could always cook up some more and add it later. I haven't decided, but either way, depending on how much of each one I would do. Normally this would be finished right here, but I've been in kind of one of these routines lately. You ever get on, when I was young, I remember my parents would call it a kick. Like if you're on like a certain food, you'd be like on a cereal kick or an oatmeal kick or a banana kick, strawberry, whatever, something that you just, for whatever reason, you've been eating, that's kind of like your go-to snack or meal you've been doing a lot. Well, for some reason, I really don't know why. It just, one day it sounded good. It was good, and it hasn't sounded bad since. So I've been eating it a lot, is fried eggs. So on top of this, and tomorrow, it's actually going to be cold when I eat these. I've already cooked them up. So on each one of these, I've got just a fried egg here. I'm just going to put on top. And tomorrow, that's going to be nice. You'll kind of mash that up with it as well. And that adds a little bit more fat and protein to each dish also. I tried not to, obviously they didn't break apart evenly. I tried to keep them separate, but, just like they say about waffles, good eggs stick together, right? That's the Simpsons joke. I don't know if anybody watches the old Simpsons episodes, but that's what I always think of when foods stick together. Good waffles stick together. But if you do watch it, you know what I'm talking about. If not, never mind. Just making myself laugh. And then on top of that, I'm going to put just a little bit of black pepper. And I'm just going to package those up with the lids. Didn't get the lids out. I don't know where they are exactly. Somewhere here in one of the cupboards. So I'll worry about that afterward. But when I put those on there, they'll be ready to go for tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to eating them already. I just wish it would hurry up if it was time already. So yeah, if you have any questions or, hopefully, again, I'm not a chef or a cook or anything. I just, after being sick for so long, I learned how to fix food for myself, and also working in the fitness industry, always trying different things, to fuel your body and, see different results and try different things. I just like to experiment and play around with things. So a lot of people ask me, what kind of stuff I eat or how I do it. So I just like to do these. Hopefully it just gives you ideas to do things for yourself. Like I certainly wouldn't expect anybody to be watching this, like taking notes or anything. But, this is a sample of something that I would do. Again, I've never done it with the fried egg on top. So that's a little bit of an experiment. So there's always a lot of different things you can try. And hopefully it'll just, someone sees this and thinks, hey, that's a good idea. I want to try that. But, I want more vegetables, or maybe I want to use red beans or brown rice, or whatever it may be. Obviously there's a lot of variables, but this is what I did, these little rice bowls with the fried eggs. So I'm going to enjoy those tomorrow until the next food feature, food challenge, or whatever I post. Stay hungry and be healthy.